it was very much like a pilgrimage, you know, in a sense. If I have to think about what my belief and what my faith is, it is in art. It is in the act of making, you know, and work. And so I did feel a bit like a monk climbing a mountain in search of salvation and in search of freedom. Because I'm calling it a performance and because I'm calling it a pilgrimage, my experience of these spaces is not just a walk through the park, but it's a heightened experience, or at least there is the desire to have a heightened experience, which is why hours are spent making drawings in quiet, in a very meditative state, you know, of looking and making, and looking and mark making, and looking and mark making, looking and mark making. So there is a very kind of, there is an embodiment that happens in that ritual, and a transformation that that body goes through as a result of that experience. It was pretty bare bone. I mean, sleeping in tents and sleeping under the stars, and yeah. So being completely immersed in this world, not having any exit from it actually, until the end. Well, I started as this kind of very earthy, very kind of desert Indian, gaunt, bearded, all in white, very, there was a certain amount of, there was a kind of masculinity, I suppose, in the way in which I played that part out, you know. The adventurer, the explorer, the, you know, the warrior as well. I was thinking about all these things. But in a sense, it was important for me to exit the piece with shedding all of that. I mean, I like to create, in a sense, some of these stereotypes of what might one think of an Indian man, or something from an Orientalist painting, you know, with the turban and the beard and the striped, you know, dressing gown that I wore here. I was very inspired by the Sheikh's collection of Orientalist painting, and the uncanny resemblance to the Rajasthani, Indian, Rabari, desert, camel-driving man. I was trying to weave all these characters together to create this persona. So I took several trips out into the desert in search of that perfect vista, that perfect spot where nature, the sand dunes and the mountains came together in all their glory, and the ocean, and connect, in a sense, the land and the sea. So my travels took me into the desert, but also took me into Oman and into the mountains of northern Oman and Musandam, and out into the ocean in search of the perfect vista and that perfect scenario. And it took several trips to finally say these were the spaces and places that I wanted to inhabit and I wanted to bring back to Sharjah as a travelogue, as a performance, to let the work actually go to these places, to embody these spaces, and to bring them back and remake them as if they were memories of a place that I had visited. So it became a 9-day performance piece, where I divided the 9 days into 3 days in the desert, 3 days in the ocean or the sea, and 3 days in Sharjah. But in the end, what I did was I cut away that beard, I shed all my hair, and in a sense stripped myself of that gender that I had created, you know, that persona, that masculinity that I had created for myself, to place myself in a kind of gender ambiguous way in the end, you know. Also to play a little bit with what is allowed and what is not allowed in in a place like the Emirates, So with a shaved head and full makeup, like, eyeshadow and eyeliner and lipstick and nail polish, which I still haven't managed to take off, and a dress, translucent and lit with LED lights. So it kind of flashed like the skyline would, or some of the architecture that one sees here would, or the mosque would, or the back, in a sense, had this kind of slightly Burj Khalifa kind of form to it. So it was about extracting myself from the past as well and pushing myself into this future android kind of wired, pulsating jellyfish, swan, all in white. Definitely something that was very different from where I had started. So I very slowly walked out of this space and walked along the creek, caught the attention of passers-by, and like the Pied Piper, in a sense, gathered people as I walked through, and got onto the 1 dirham abra, which takes you across the creek onto the other side, and waved people goodbye as I twinkled and flashed, and waved goodbye to the audience, to the performance, to Beit al-Shamsi, to the 9-day ordeal. Hopefully it's a kind of call to the people of this place to say, stop, look back, remember, and rethink about your relationship with this land. Which is why the title, Use Like Water, which is to say, use preciously what you have.